So I've got a rant here real quickly before we get into these
Okay.
videos, but I'm going to start it with a question.
Yeah.
Who are the laziest government employees?
Middle managers. No, I don't know.
I would say teachers would be the top. You would have bureaucrats would be in there, but within the top 3 to 5, you've got firemen. For sure, fucking firemen are the laziest, some of the laziest government employees. The only time you ever see a fireman in public is when they load 20 of them up into the fire truck and go buy thousands of dollars worth of food at the grocery store. We had a forestry department next door to my house when I grew up. And you know what they did every day? They played fucking ping pong. And they went to the grocery store and they barbecued. And they waited for a fucking fire. That's all they did. Why in the hell are these people sitting on their ass all fucking day when we have forests that need to be cleaned up? I don't even care if you hire a couple more firemen, but we should have minimal staff at these places that are hanging out waiting for a fire, and then 60% of the firemen should be out in the forest right now cleaning up.
Well, that that would be a way to deal with it. However, Gavin Newsom vetoed at least 2 bills that would have included forest cleanup, and there was other bills that didn't make it through their House or Senate or whatever.
That's misinformation. Gavin Newsom put up a website today proving it.
I don't care. I can go back and get the bill numbers. ChatGPT wouldn't do it for me, but I mean, if you guys want them, there was actually Chamath called out the bill numbers on last week's All In podcast,
dude,
which is worth a listen.
You could go in to LA right now and just go to one of the forests that haven't been burned down with an iPhone and just, here you go. It's a disaster. I guarantee you could just go onto some hiking trail that's, like a public hiking trail and just film dead trees and brush and garbage, fucking homeless people everywhere starting fires. People dropping gas cans into the fucking sewers to start fire. The place is a disaster. An absolute disaster.
Thinking back to Chamath's talk on this, he put out some numbers, and they used to export like 6.5 billion tons, or I don't remember the number, and of wood just from stuff that fell on the ground.
Yeah.
And now they only export like 10% or 20% of that. So they're losing revenue from it too.
Yeah.
So they could probably pay for the cleanup by selling the wood.
So in the 50s and 60s, my grandfather worked for a logging company in Northern California. His job was all day, every day, cutting in fire road. That's all he did, is he got on a cat and he cut in fire road around everything that they're doing. If it's starting to grow over, if you got a little bit more brush, you go back over it and do it again and do it again. And it's all he did was fire road for 20 years until he ended up being a truck driver. Now, all of that land has been ripped away from the loggers and taken over by the government, and they don't manage it. They want to blame. Loggers did one of the stupidest things in history a long time ago when they cut down the old growth redwoods. That was fucking stupid. It was horribly dumb and short-sighted, but we have learned from that. Like every logging company in the world would not one of them would touch those fucking trees. Maybe, let's say America, because the world's a little fuckery, but no logging company in America would cut those trees down, even if they had the ability to do it. They'd say we could make a whole lot more money keeping the place maintained and making it better for people to come and witness it rather than cutting it all down. They have figured out trees. You cut, you plant, you cut, you plant, and you keep going around. If they were allowed to take over this land and manage it themselves, these fires would go away immediately because they are not going to let their money go up in flames.
And I disagree with you on the firefighters. There's tons of brave men and lesbians.
Sure.
Jokes aside, I live probably a tenth of a mile from a firehouse, and yeah, they do sit and wait for fires, but those guys are busy. Also, my neighborhood was just recently gentrified, so that's probably...
Well, most of their job is now being emergency response for car accidents.
And the engines. I see an engine go out twice a day.
All right. Well, we don't have I have a fire department right next to me too, and we don't have fires here for the most part.
You guys have volunteer or?
Not really. Like my grandfather was a volunteer firefighter for a really long time in Nevada. They had a lot of volunteer there, but he would go out and clean brush and shit. And like they just aren't doing that anymore. And I
Well, you
get
can
that
do
like
that in Nevada. You just can't do that in California.
yeah, and like I get that your job is to sit around and do nothing, but like come on people, within the fire department there has to be some sort of top down like culture shift. We shifting from like being a preventative measure, like from being just sitting around waiting to being a preventative measure. Like they need to be proactive and go out there and stop this shit before it happens.
Uh well, let me play devil's advocate on that one. So you go out there, you only have so much gas in the tank as a person, and you're out there, you fucking gas out your arms, and then all of a sudden now you got to carry a 300-pound person out of a building. That's probably not the best either.
Not the best for lesbians, but if you get a big strapping fucking man out there, and I'm not
No, but if
saying
he's
that
out
like
chopping trees all day, how the fuck are you gonna have gas left in the tank to actually save a life?
you're a badass. That's what you do. You know, I did tree work for 5 years,
UFC
and
fighters
like
are badass, and they're fucking exhausted after 15 minutes, bro.
I did tree work for 5 years. It's not easy. It's fucking. It was one of the most miserable jobs I've ever had. The coldest I've ever been in my entire life was in Northern California, not North Dakota. Like I was in the back of a truck one time, just fucking soaked. It's like 40 degrees, 38 degrees, and pouring down rain. The wind is ripping like fucking crazy. And we've been working for like 20 hours straight because you got to clear these trees off of roads for people to be able to get down and go to work and shit. So we would
Yeah.
work like fucking crazy. And like coming from the line industry, I don't like the oh, but it would be so hard. Like we worked our fucking asses off doing line work. We were wiped every day, but you had to be in shape. You had to be prepared for it. Like if you weren't capable of climbing 30 poles a day, you just can't do the job. And like I'm not saying that these people should be called from, doing tree work to all of a sudden going and yanking something out of a building. We need to have crews, like we had different crews in line work. We had a crew that went around and saddled, they would frame the poles, they would set the poles, and then the linemen would come in and hang all the lines and energize everything. We could have rotating crews where you've got a crew at the fire station and you've got a crew out working, and it's a rotation. You do 2 days at the firehouse, you do 3 days out in there, however it works. If you've got to hire more firemen, hire more firemen. Like I would rather pay for double the amount of firemen than movie stars' houses burning down in Los Angeles.
I'd rather pay a private company to do it.
I would too, but that's not really in the cards.
Yeah.
Like that's the obvious situation is give the loggers their land back and let them manage it like they know how to. But that's just
Breaking
not going to
news.
happen.
Breaking news: climate change just lit San Bernardino on fire.
Oh my god!
It's expanded. It started at 2 p.m. Pacific time. From 5 acres, it's up to 34 acres 31 minutes ago.